Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode. And pretty excitingly, this is our first episode ever where we're actually recording video. So, as we record this, I don't actually know if this video, the whole video, will be out, will get put out, but I'm sure some clips will make their way onto social media. But yeah, Tricia, pretty exciting time, right?
I mean, I always thought I had a face for radio, so I'm not sure about this.
Yeah, we've hidden away. We've done the podcast now. We're up to episode 93, so we're almost up to the big 100. And yeah, we thought we would give this a whirl, recording videos. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens, and yeah, it'll get edited down again, and we'll see. There won't be like the, I don't know, nose scratches and weird looks and stuff like that. But yeah, it should be a fun way to record.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's what do they call it? It's a test, right? Just an experiment, if you will.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll hopefully get some feedback as well and see what the good people out there think. So I've been playing lots of poker, Tricia. Mentioned, I think, either on the last episode or the previous one, that I was aiming to play a lot more in the evenings, playing the peak schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
the goal was to play 400 MTTs this month, and I'm up to 300 as I record this, with 3 more sessions to go. So it's going to be a
Okay.
push to get those
Okay.
100 games in. But the way I'm working it at the moment, I'm trying to play like 30 games on a Tuesday, 30 on a Thursday, and then 40 on a Sunday. But we're recording this on a Monday, and I played yesterday, and things must have gone well at the start because I wasn't re-entering tournaments. So I only actually managed 34 games yesterday. So I was 6 shy, but
Oh.
we'll see. We'll see how things go. If things go really badly, then I, re-enter tournaments or have to find other ones to play. So clearly, at the start of the session, it went reasonably well, and I still had like the first 8 to 12 tournaments that I'd registered. But yeah, it's been a long old grind slog, and I'm enjoying it. I think it's really good. I'm really motivated to improve, and then apply everything that I've learned, or try my best to apply
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I've learned in the battle in sessions. And then it's kind of like the whole learning cycle that we talk about in our book, Purposeful Practice for Poker, which I have a copy of right here, and we can show it to anyone who's watching this podcast. If you're not watching, then you're going to be disappointed because you can't see anything right now. But this is our book, Purposeful Practice for Poker, the modern approach to studying poker, by Dr. Tricia Cardner and Gareth James. That's me and you, Tricia,
Boy, that
or you
sounds
and me.
official.
Yeah. So so it's all about the learning cycle. So I think that if you can, you got to practice what you preach, and we wrote about that in the book. And I'm super motivated at the moment to apply things, and then see what works, see what doesn't, reflect, and go from there. So yeah, just loving the poker at the moment.
I can't remember if I brought this up on our last recording or not, but they put out the schedule for the WSOP circuit,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's all going online
Oh
for
well.
this year, right? Because of the whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
It just got me to wondering, and so you can ponder this with me. Now, a lot of these things, they are going online, even though online poker is not widely available in the United States, right?
Hmm.
But it's getting me to wondering, do you think we're gonna see fewer live tournaments post-COVID?
Good question. I don't think so. I think as soon as everyone's had the jab, or everyone who wants to have the jab has had the jab, then I think we'll be back to playing live. And I think people are dying to play live. Not hopefully
I know I
literally,
am.
but yeah, they really want to play, get out there and
Yeah.
play some live poker. So I think it'd be interesting to see if the series goes ahead this year. I'm guessing that it probably won't. I don't think enough people will get vaccinated before then. Do you agree?
It's really tough to say, because you have to get enough people to get vaccinated, and I have started reading rumblings, if you will, about people having to get, they called it a COVID, passport, I think.
Okay,
And
yeah.
basically, it's the idea that if you want to travel around, you're going to have to show this proof that you've gotten vaccinated, right? So I think that's, I don't know if that's going to come to pass or not, but people are saying that might be a good thing to do. And it probably will come to pass, I'm thinking. Especially, like, if I wanna get on an airplane and come to your country's probably not gonna be like, "Oh, yeah, sure, come on over," unless I have, physical proof with my card or passport or ID or whatever that is. Okay, so that's one aspect, right? They have to figure out, okay, how are we gonna verify that people have been vaccinated? Okay, how many people have been vaccinated? Of course, in the US of A, they have had significant difficulties rolling out this vaccine, right? I don't know how it is in your country. So I just think there's a lot of things, but having said all that, live poker is going on in America. I'm sure you've seen the pictures
Yeah.
where they've got the plexiglass and, they've got the masks and all that stuff. I have not partaken in it myself, but so I don't know. Do I think enough people can be vaccinated by end of May, early June? I have no idea. Nobody's calling me from the government to let me know, what the situation
Yeah.
is. So all I know is they put it on the news like every night and they'll say like, okay, like my county, they're like, oh yeah, girl, guys, whoever's watching, we got some vaccines. Get on the wait list, right? And then I was like, "Oh, for grins and giggles, I'm gonna type in and I'm gonna see, like, what the wait list is." They literally announced it for my county. I hot-foot it to the computer. Ta, 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 ta. There were already 45,000 people on the wait list,
Wow.
and they got, like, I don't know, 600 vaccines. Woo, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's going to take a
I don't
while.
know, it's interesting, though. Okay, let me pose this because this may apply to some of our listeners. I guess if you have the vaccine, but like everybody else doesn't, but then you should be good to go, right? So if you were vaccinated, you'd be willing to get on the plane and come to the WSOP? Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
I think that would be true, right? So I guess, but poker players are not like at least the way they're doing it here, it's they have classes. So, like if you're a healthcare worker or if you're over 65, blah, blah, blah. I don't think poker players are gonna be high on the list.
No. Well, there's a decent number of old
Over
poker players,
65, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
seniors
Yeah.
or super seniors, as we yeah,
Okay, every time we're at the World Series, right? This started happening, I don't know, some years ago when senior event would hit, there would be so many people that they would have to shut down, the later events, right?
yeah,
So the seniors would start at like 10 or 11 a.m. But I think the point of the story was that there's a lot of seniors and super seniors who could be eligible for the vaccine and right, they could go.
yeah, yeah, and that's because to be fair, like that's the demographic that's most affected and could is at the highest risk, I guess. So
Mhm.
making sure that they're vaccinated, and then I mean, there's a lot of young people within poker, I'm sure, will be pretty cavalier about this and not
Mhm.
really care about it. Um, and mainly maybe because they feel like, okay, well, if I get it, like I'll be poorly, but I'll be sick, but I can recover, I can get over it. Whereas my sort of response to that is obviously it'd be better to get vaccinated, but also don't put other people at risk, right? If you don't go
Mhm.
and get it, don't just think about yourself, think about other people. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. But yeah, it's interesting you talk about the sort of the rollout. With your new president now, maybe things will improve. It sounds like there's a chance that they might. We're still struggling over here. We're still in lockdown, so schools are closed now. So I think in the
Oh,
last episode
wow.
we talked about, or maybe 2 episodes ago, because we recorded that before the latest lockdown. So the kids went back to school for one day, and then they were like, "No, we're going to close the schools again." Now, this is bonkers. Everyone had been home
One
for
day?
Christmas. Yeah, they went back to school for a day. Like, why they
Wow.
couldn't have just said, "Oh, actually, no, this is a really bad idea." Like,
Mhm.
but everyone went to primary. It was mainly primary schools, which is like under 11s, and the yes, I went back for a day, and then it's been closed ever since. So, um, yeah, it doesn't affect me, but it's yeah, it certainly affects, my family. My nephew goes to school and is now
Mhm.
being homeschooled, and so different kind of life, I guess. He was used to going to school, loves going to school, and then isn't going to school anymore. Just has been taught at home by his mum, my sister, and yeah. So it's an interesting start to his school life, I would say. But yeah, well, I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, things will start to improve. We're starting to see that R number come down, less than 1 now, which is great. And so, yeah, fingers crossed for the US as well. I think, hopefully things will start improving across, our two countries and the world. And then, maybe later on this year we might see some live poker back in the States and in the UK and in the rest of Europe and in the rest of the world.
Oh, that'd be so nice.
So you got a question for us today, Tricia?
Well, I do have a question. This question comes to us from Simon. Simon says, I've really been struggling with frustration at how often I'm losing all ends. There's a voice inside my head that is yelling, "It's not fair," every time I lose an all in. It's really starting to negatively affect my game. I know I'm being irrational, but in the moment, it always gets me. What should I do? What do you think, G? Before I go down my list of tips, what's your
Yeah, the
reaction?
first thing that comes to mind is the number of posts you see on social media in Facebook groups. Like I'm a member of various
Mhm.
poker Facebook groups, and they'll talk about like, oh, is it? I bet this was on Poker Stars. No one, you can't win a flip on Poker Stars. Well, somebody's winning the flip on Poker Stars, like like just because you're not, and you have a sort of you might have lost a few in a row, and it feels like you can't win a flip. There's always another person who wins it. It's a zero sum game. So like somebody must be winning, and it's not, then people would go on and say, oh, it's the bots on the site, they always win. It's just absolutely bonkers. I can't, yeah. You always see it, and I think there's a huge mindset leak, and it's usually from a weaker player. You never hear a strong player complaining about this kind of thing. So I think it's all part of the learning experience to get
Mhm.
used to dealing with these kind of beats and losing flips and stuff like this. But yeah, I think it's something definitely you want to work on, because it's going to be holding you back.
Well, I love what you said. I think you just encapsulate it perfectly. But now let's get down to brass tacks because Simon here needs some strategy, right? But along the lines of what you were saying, I want to read a little something. Okay, I enjoy, and I know you do too, a little Stoic philosophy. And our good pal, the long dearly departed Epictetus, reminds us that if we go to the bathhouse, then it's likely we'll find people who jostle, splash, and steal, and that we can get upset about it, or we can remind ourselves this is what happens at the bathhouse.
Very good.
So, Epictetus and the Stoics in general think that if we recognize and accept that if we play poker, this is what happens at the poker table, then we should be, less annoyed, less frustrated by it because we're choosing to play this game. And part of the game is, and particularly in tournament poker, it's high variance, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what does high variance mean, dear listener? It means that you're going to have small edges, nothing's guaranteed, and you're going to lose a lot of flips, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is, right? Okay, so that's the Stoic version. Let's talk about the psychological version. So, by my estimation, there are 4 key skills that one needs to, I'd say, develop when it comes to dealing with these difficult thoughts and emotions. What a lot of people are going to tell you is they're going to say some version of this: push it out of your mind. Don't think about it. Think positively, right? Toxic positivity. Can barely say those two words together, but it kind of gets on my nerves. And because we are videoing, like I could see you smiling right now. So do you have a thought or two already on where I'm going with this before I get into the 4 key skills?
I feel like one of the major reasons why I really like listening to you when it comes to mindset is that I often feel like it's actually something that's backed up by science and evidence and
Yeah.
theory. And so I feel like that's maybe where you're going to go with this, rather than the sort of like this idea that, like, you know, you can push that, like, sort of like suppress your emotions and, like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like, oh, it doesn't, like, you know, you should never feel negative, you know, just why would you feel negative? Like, it's this kind of stuff is possible. Like, so if it's possible, then why are you worried about it? You made the right decision, and you know, focus on the things you can control, and stop crying like a baby.
Quit your crying. You know what? It's very interesting because you're picking up on a few things. You said thought suppression, which is kind of where I was getting at, where most people are going to tell you, you know, don't think about it or think positively or whatever. That's thought suppression. There's a large body of research around thought suppression. And guess what? It does not work. When you attempt to suppress the thoughts, you will think about that more. It just has to do with the way the brain is designed, right? Because it's almost like your brain is reminding you of things, right? So I say, hey, Gareth, whatever you do, don't think about a white bear right now. And before I said it, you weren't thinking about a white bear, right? But now you're like,
but I am now.
right? And then if I said, don't do it, Gareth, don't think about the white bear. Let's say that's you actively trying to suppress the thought. Well, what research shows is when you do that, the thought is going to reoccur more frequently. It's going to come up more and more because there's a part of your brain that's like the observer. And that part of your brain is like, hey, are we still not supposed to be thinking about the white bear? And you're like, stop thinking about the white bear. And then it's like, how about now? Are we still thinking about the white bear? So there are some issues with that. So I love that research about the thought suppression. Yeah, it doesn't work. Another thing that you kind of were tapping into about the emotions. Well, unfortunately, I have bad news for everybody, but the research shows pretty clearly that we have what they call an asymmetry of emotion. And that means that we have a lot more negative emotion than we have positive. And they study that in a lot of various ways. One way is just to see how many words, like if I said, hey, Gareth, how many words can you think of that describe feelings? Right? They've done that with groups of people. And on average, people could come up with about 4 negative for every 1 positive, right? So it's like, oh, feelings. What pops into your head if I say, oh, name
Like
me some feelings?
anger,
Oh,
frustration,
right.
confusion,
Fear, right?
fear. Yeah.
Sadness, right? And then every once in a while, people will throw in like, oh, okay, happiness.
Yeah.
But we do see that. So, and we talked about many times on here before, the brain has a negativity bias. Okay, so what I'm setting up for you is basically that if you're a human being, you're a tilt machine. That's just the way it goes, right?
Mhm.
We should have an expectation. And that's what Epictetus was trying to tell us when he talked about the bathhouse. Okay, so now the 4 key skills. Skill number 1 is awareness. So what we typically do is you get sucked out on like Simon, and he's like, it's not there. Okay, well, when he goes there, he does not have the present awareness, right? He's back in the past, worrying about what happened to him. Sometimes we're also worried about the future because we're worried about like what this could mean. You know, oh, I'm down to my last, 2 big blinds. I'm almost out. Oh, it's going to be embarrassing to take the walk of shame, like you have to do at the live events where you're just sure that everybody's looking and pointing and laughing. Even though nobody really cares, but that's just how the mind works. So you have to have an awareness that these thoughts are going to crop up, that thoughts are just mental events. We don't choose and really can't choose what thoughts pop into our head. And I'm sure, as a human alive in the world, you've noticed that sometimes you probably think really weird things and you're like, why did that come into my head?
Well, I don't want to admit to that, Tricia.
Well, if you're human, then that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
I know I do. Sometimes I'm like, okay, where'd that come from? That's really weird. But I recognize it's just a mental event. I don't have to give it attention. And that's the thing. Simon needs to focus on thinking about how much attention he even wants to give these thoughts. And to me, he's probably giving them, too much attention. Okay, so that's skill number one. Got to have that awareness. Number two is going to be utility. Now, we are trained in our society to be positive. We're supposed to be positive, right? And that's where I mentioned the toxic positivity. Okay, well, you know what? Sometimes things are crap. Okay,
Yeah.
that's just the reality, right? So, acceptance is a bonus skill. It wasn't one I was going to talk about, but we really did when we talked about Epictetus. But the way I want you to think about thoughts is not positive or negative, but I want you to think about it in terms of utility. So, is this thought useful in the moment? And obviously, for Simon, it's not, because he says it really affects his game. He used those exact words, it negatively affects my game. And he says he knows he's being irrational. So to me, that says, okay, it's not useful. Okay. So basically, utility is it helping me take effective action? Is it helping me play well? If the answer is yes, then go on about your business. If the answer is no, then we need to go to the third key skill, which is where we are going to diffuse it. Now, there are a number of ways you can diffuse a thought. And I talked about a lot of these diffusion techniques in my book, Peak Poker Performance, which came out prior to Purposeful Practice for Poker. And I'm sure our dedicated listeners all have a copy of this book and have highlighted it and dog-eared it and whatnot. But in case you haven't gotten to it yet or you've forgotten, a really good diffusion technique is to label it. And so if you take the time to label the emotion, oh, I noticed right now that I'm feeling, frustration or anger. I'm noticing that my mind is thinking, this is not fair. I notice, my mind is taking me to the place where, this is messing up my game. Okay, that's labeling. Another thing that works really well is writing. Now, I don't mean like writing a book, but just jot down a couple little notes about what you're feeling. They say in psychology, they call it name it to tame it. Have you ever heard that
No.
saying before? Oh, that's a little psychotherapist talk, but they say name it to tame it. So when you take the time to explicitly name the feeling, that automatically reduces some of the reactivity. And writing will also do that for you. So, maybe you put a note on your phone on the app, or you, have a little notebook. Jonathan Little's famous for, he's got his little notebook. And if you ever play at a table with him, you'll do something and then he'll whip out that notebook out of his pocket and he'll be writing down. And so I don't know if he's using that as a diffusion technique or an investigative, kind of like a reporter or what, but writing does work. So do that. And then the fourth key skill is you want to take right action. So right action means is you really need to be very purposeful about what are your goals for the session. And I would say even more broadly for playing poker in general. And you really need to keep those goals at the top of your mind, because if you don't, it's really easy to go down these paths where you're not taking right action. You're just doing what feels good in the moment, right? It feels good to, well, maybe if you're a Real Housewife or Mike Madison, it feels good to throw over the table when you're mad. or you guys probably saw that video, it was years ago, and they had the Planters Peanuts guy, the mascot, and he was at the World Series and Mike Madison was mad. And I think he like pushed him, or do you remember that?
I have not seen that, no.
Oh, girl, get on YouTube. It's on there. But anyway, I'm sure it feels good in the moment, but does that line up with, what your goals are? Probably not. When Simon's playing, getting lost in these emotions of frustration and anger, and it's not fair, that's probably not helping, with his goals. So
Yeah.
that's what you want to do. Another quick tip is use the if then statements. In psychology, we call these pre-commitment rules or pre-commitment statements. And that takes the form usually of if this happens, then I will do this. If I notice myself getting frustrated, then I will and then you fill in the blank, right? Take 2 deep breaths, get up and walk around, go get a drink of water, like whatever the rule is going to be for you, but you set this in advance, okay? And so that way, when something crops up, you go to your rule and then you trigger it and you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So I think if Simon did these things, he would probably get some decent results. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think as you were saying all of that, the one thing that came to mind was this idea that if you ever get to a point in poker where you believe that it's your bad luck or your run bad that is the cause of you losing, then you've lost, right? Because you're
Oh,
not
yeah,
then
that's
focusing on
good.
the things that you can control. And I've probably fallen into this trap before, like finishing a session and going, "Wow, I ran really bad today. That's definitely why I had a losing session." Rather than, okay, well, I might have run bad, who knows? But what did I learn? And if I do a review and look through these hands, did I play perfectly? Probably not. So there's so much to learn. So you want to get to the end of a session and think, yeah, I gave it my all, but there's probably still things to learn. And I'm not gonna like blame someone else's poor decision making or poor strategy or whatever for my losses. You can't control the results. What you can control is your decision making and the things that you actually have an influence over. And you can't control or influence things like card distribution or how someone else is going to play a hand, right? Or someone else is going to go 4-bet jam with 7 deuce off and crack your aces. Like, you can't control that. And over the long term, you want that to happen. But if you focus too much on the short term when you lose that hand, then you've already lost. So I think it's really, really important to focus on things you can control. You talked about it before about sort of accepting the things that
Mhm,
are outside of your control and outside of your influence, and then
mhm.
make sure at the end of it that you find something to work on, because that's what's going to help next time. Moaning about your results, getting upset, crying like a baby, like, okay, well, these things are going to happen, right? You can feel emotional, and like, I always used to think that I would try and suppress these emotions and never feel upset, or it
Mhm.
stings to, like, yesterday I finished 12th in a tournament, in a big field tournament on PokerStars. I can either like get upset and think, oh, if I just won that flip, how, why can't I win a flip with 12 left? Or I can go, okay, so what am I going to do tonight? What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do this week to make progress, to actually get better, so that next time I have a run, I make sure that I'm, better, that little bit better than I was the last time. And like, the bust out hand wasn't the clincher. Like, it was a flip, ace nine suited versus eights, right? But in the end, I had 4 big blinds. So I wonder if there were moments in the tournament, no, there might not have been, but there might have been
Mhm.
moments in the tournament where I could have got an extra value bet in, so that when
Right,
I lose a flip, I'm the one that's still in, right? As in,
right.
rather than if I'm the one covered and I lose a flip, well, I'm out. So I think that's something to also think about. There'll be lots of situations where you might leave some money on the table, or you didn't make that hero fold or that hero call, and then that leads to you having fewer chips at the end, in the business end, and then you lose the flip and you're out, rather than losing a flip and still actually being in.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it's one I've heard other people, kinda tap dance around, but maybe not articulate it, like, quite that clearly, and I wanna piggyback on what you were just saying and say to people that are listening, you can train yourself and your mind to act calmly even when you feel angry and frustrated. And that's the thing that I think a lot of us don't think about. We just think, "Oh, I'm angry. I have to like smash the table," or whatever we do, right? Right. No, that's not true. You can actually train yourself to behave calmly even though you feel, like a storm is raging,
Yeah.
right? So it's something to think about too.
Great stuff, Tricia. Well, let's wrap the episode up there. Where can people find you?
You can go over to peakpokermindset.com and you can check out I actually have a whole course devoted to dealing with downswings. And one dealing with procrastination as well. So if you want to get those, go check those out. And then I have a free course too called Rev Up Your Poker Success, which is about goal setting. And since it is still the first of the year, if you want to work towards setting some goals, that'd be good for you too. How about you, Gareth? Where can people check you out?
So head over to mttpokerschool.com. Got everything on there, from the social media links to links to the course and group coaching. And if you want to send me a message, you can do that as well. So yeah, everything on the main page, mttpokerschool.com. All right, Tricia. Well, this was a fun first episode, recording video and audio, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited for more. But it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
You too. I always love catching up and talking about poker and psychology. It's like my two favorite things. So.
Yeah, well, that's ditto. So yeah, let's wrap things up there. Everyone else out there, take care, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.